an absolutely incredible day. Today, I wanted to run you through this new setup that I built, which is an AI news fact checker. Now, the thing that's really cool about this, and I'll just pull up the make.com scenario to show you what it looks like. The way I can explain this the best is through a little story. So, I was introduced to someone recently through mutual friends, and he runs a blog where he makes a considerable amount of money, and most of the blogs are written using ChatGPT. So he'll use ChatGPT to come up with ideas and also to write the majority of the article. And the issue that he was encountering is that not all of the facts from ChatGPT, from what it was creating, were actually real. And some of these were fake, or some of them were old based on what ChatGPT has been trained on. And so he was spending a lot of his time manually going and having to search up this information on Google. And so I told him that there is a solution to this and it can be fully automated. And so here it is. And so firstly, I wanted to show you how it works and show you the output and explain to you a little bit of what's going on. And then we'll go ahead and build this out ourselves. I think that you will learn a ton if you actually follow this to the very end, because it's pretty complex. There's a lot going on, and it'll teach you a lot about Make as well as a lot of Airtable. So you'll be learning some basic strategies all the way up to some more complex strategies, and you'll also get my thought process behind how this was actually achieved. So let's say he takes his article, he wants to be able to fact check the entire article, make sure that what he's posting is relevant as well as up-to-date information, right, with what is currently available. Now, the issue is that when you have a 2,000 word article, ChatGPT is really good at the beginning and the end, and so all of this information in between kind of gets lost. And so you need to break up the entire article into different facts. And so what I did is you paste in your article here, you click fact check, it's going to run it through this. So essentially first it comes up here, it splits it all into different facts. It is then going to loop through these facts, upload them back into the fact database. So here you can see that it's split through every single fact. This was another one that I had run, right? You can see it is all complete here. And it's just going to check every single one. So that's when it comes down through this second part of the automation. And it is doing a request out to Perplexity to verify this information. And it verifies every single fact individually through Perplexity, so it's actually searching the web, and Perplexity is doing that research for you, and then it goes and it re-uploads it back into Airtable, and you end up with a final verified article that you can see here. So before we go any further, I'm just going to show you how it works, and we're going to run it right now. So we're going to back out of this automation here, and now we are going to click Start Fact Check. Now this is going to trigger the automation within the Airtable. Now if we come back here, in a second we should see that the execution has started running. It has triggered the watch responses Airtable trigger, and is going to start splitting it into facts. If we hop back into our Airtable and we click into the facts database, we should start to see all the facts starting to be populated right here. This scenario is running, boom, it split the facts, and now it is reading through all the facts, and you can see them start to get pushed in, and the accuracy is pending with the fact check status to in progress. And with every single fact, it's going to tell you whether the fact is actually true or false, and then provide you with supporting evidence as to why, based on the research that it did. So now you can see it's looping through the second portion, right? So right down here, it's looping through and it's doing the research within Perplexity. And then we come back into the generate article. You can see all of the different facts that have been verified. You can see that these first four were all false, where the fact correction is and why it is false. And then lastly, it outputs the final article as a verified article. It marks the fact check status is done, and you can read the entire article and you can view the changes that it made yourself to make sure that it is actually accurate. Alright, so you can see here, if we looked at the first one, Elvenwood is home to the Redwood Forest Reserve, where towering ancient trees reach towards the sky, and then we see that it's marked it as false. And if we read the fact correction, the Redwood National Park in California. So it's not actually Elvenwood, it's the Redwood National Park. It makes the changes based on the information that it found. And then it also provides you with supporting evidence stating, it mentions Elvenwood is not a real location. It seems to be a fictional artistic reference as seen from this book. Real locations for this are Redwood National Park in California. So it makes the changes. It does all of this research for you so that you don't have to, and then it outputs the final article. So in my opinion, that is incredible. And now we are going to dive in and learn how we can actually build this out ourselves. So I hope you're ready. This one's going to be a big one, and this one is super awesome. It has a real world application. There's someone doing this right now, making a ton of money, and I'm super happy to be sharing this with you. I've worked on it for the last couple of weeks, really iterating it. It used to have a lot more steps. I tried to simplify it as much as possible, and this is where I ended up. So let's get started. So the very first thing that we're going to want to do is create a new AI News fact checker database. So you're going to go ahead and create a new database from scratch, right? So I just called mine AI News fact checker. And then you're going to want to have two tables. The first one's going to be articles, and the second one is going to be facts. Now, within the views, I just created one view. So you come down here, you click on new grid, and that'll give you the view that you want. And you can just retitle that all articles. And then within this, you're going to want to add a bunch of fields. So we are just going to loop through all of these fields now, and we're going to build it out from scratch together. Before we go any further and we run through all of the different columns that we have and how it's all linked, I just wanted to mention that I do have a school community where I provide all of these make automations for you. Also have weekly calls, and anytime you have any questions whatsoever, you can reach out to me personally, and I'll be able to help you walk through and debug your own issues and really get you from where you're at to where you want to be. So the community is 60% off right now as we're new and as we're growing, and as I want to make the community as best as it possibly can. And in order to do so, once we hit 20 community members, it'll only become 40% off, and it'll continue like that until it is full price, and you'll be locked in at a lifetime price of 60% off. And what I'm going to be building out in the future, I haven't seen anyone else doing. You'll be able to research your niches, pull in the best performing posts of their data, and then also be able to create your own post, all managed within Airtable and make.com. I'm super excited to be sharing this with you and building this out and sharing my journey along the way. So for this, you are going to need to have the article ID, which is just a simple ID auto number field. I called it article ID. You come down here, you select auto number, and that way every single article will have its own unique ID. You're also going to want to have an article, which is going to be long text. That's where you'll be pasting in your article to have the information verified. You're also going to have this AI prompt. So it's also going to be a long text, and then the text that we have here is split the following article into logical chunks based on ideas or facts. We're going to format the result as a JSON object with an array called pairs. Now, each object within the array should have three keys. So we're going to have the original, which is going to contain the original chunk fact. We're going to have a fact check, which is going to be set to pending, meaning that the fact hasn't been verified and it's either going to be true or false. And then we're going to have correction, which for the time being should be set to null. And if it is false, then it's going to have the correction uploaded in there. So we also do not want to include any delimiters like JSON around the JSON output, right? So we want it in the pure JSON format. And lastly, here is the article. And then we are going to add a checkbox. The checkbox is going to be start fact check, and that is the style that we are using. We're going to have the fact check status, and there are three different fields. So you're going to come in here, you're going to choose single select. So you're either going to have not started, in progress, or done. And the default option is going to be not started. So whenever you create a new article, it is going to automatically be in the not started status. Next, we are going to have a record ID. The record ID is going to be the formula, and then the formula is simply going to be record ID with both parentheses. We are going to have the total facts. So this is essentially what allows us to determine if the fact check status is done or not, right? So we have the total facts, and the total facts is going to be a count of the facts link. So I'll show you how to set that up in a second. Then we're going to have facts verified, which is a count, once again, of the facts link, and we're going to turn this on, so only include linked records from facts where fact check status is complete. Once again, don't worry about that for now. You can just go ahead and set them up and choose count, but we won't be able to select the source yet until we create the facts table. And then we are going to have the ready, and this is the formula, so which is saying like if total facts is greater than 0 and the total facts is equal to the facts verified, give it the status of 1, otherwise keep it at 0. So essentially, when these two are equal, put this to 1, otherwise if all the facts haven't been verified yet, then the status is not ready because the article is not done. Lastly, I have two other hidden fields here right now, which is the facts linked and the compiled facts. So we'll get to those in a second. For now, let's hop into the facts view. And one other thing that's important to note that I forgot to say is you want to group by the article so that every single article that you create is going to have this nice little dashboard. Now, if we hop into facts, right, I have two grids. So you're going to want to create two grids. The first one, you're going to click here, you're going to click grid. The first one is going to be all facts, and then the second one is going to be generate article. So if we open up the all facts, it's got a pretty similar setup to the articles table. So first you're going to want to have a fact ID, which is going to be an auto number. Next thing you want to have is the original fact, right? So this is where your facts are all going to be split. So that is just long text. Go ahead and save that. Then you're going to have accuracy. Accuracy is also going to be long text. Then you're going to have fact correction, also long text, and that's where if there is a correction, so accuracy will initially be set to pending, and then once it is run through Perplexity, it's either going to come back as false or true, and if it is false, then you're going to have a fact correction here. And then you're also going to have supporting evidence, which is going to be long text as well. So fact check status is a single select, and there's only two options, which is either it's in progress or it's complete. You are also going to have a record ID. So once again, this is going to be a formula with the record ID. You are going to have an article link. So now we're going to make our first link, right? So you're going to go link to articles. So you go link to another record, and then you're going to select the articles table, and that'll create the article link. And then I also have a few other fields here that are hidden. I'll unhide them so that you can add them as well. But you have the article, which is from the article. So that's a lookup field. And we are going to be looking up from the article link that we just created. And then we are going to be looking up the article. So that's important because that'll allow everything within our make to be processed at once. So what that means is, let's say you have 10 different facts. They're all going to be under the same article, which is the article ID. So let's say article ID is 1, and within article ID 1, we have 10 different facts that are created. Well, this is going to link them all together here. And then we also have ready, which is another lookup field, and we're looking up in the article link that we created, and we're looking up the ready table. And then lastly, we have the fact display, which is a formula, which is essentially saying that if the accuracy is equal to true, provide the original fact, otherwise provide the fact correction. So this is going to be important when it comes to compiling everything together at the end, because for every single fact, we're going to have the fact display, and then we're going to roll up the fact display. So essentially what's happening is if the accuracy is equal to true, meaning that the fact is actually true, provide us with the original fact. Otherwise, if the fact is false, provide us with the correction. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and hide those fields. And then I also have it filtered by the fact check status. So where fact check status is not complete. So as soon as it becomes complete, it comes off of all facts and it goes into generate article. And then they are grouped by the article link so that you get a nice view in this articles all facts table. Now, if we go to generate article, right, so you just go create a new grid, generate article. That's what you can name it. And then I filtered by, I want to show records where fact check status is complete and ready is equal to 1. And then they are grouped by the article link in this table as well, so that you get this nice little dashboard. Now we're going to hop back into articles, and within articles now we can create these last three right here. So if we go to total facts and we do a count, we're going to select the count link, the count source, which is going to be equal to the facts link. Now in order to connect it to that, we are going to have to unhide two more fields. So this is where we're going to create our last two fields that we couldn't before because we had to create the facts table. So I'm just going to go ahead and unhide those now. And so here we can see the facts link. So this is going to be a link. We're going to allow linking to multiple records, and we're going to call it the facts link. So essentially, this article is linked to all of these different facts. And if we hop into the facts, right, 93, 94, we can see that all of these are linked under this specific article ID, where these are the fact IDs. So we have that there. And then lastly, we have the compiled facts, which is a roll-up of the facts link. So a roll-up of all of these facts, and we are just joining those values and we are separating them by a space. That's all that's happening there. Now that we've created the facts link and the compiled facts, we can hop into total facts. So once again, we're going to select the count and we're going to select the facts link as the count source. So, right, we see that there are 6 facts. So it's going to show us that there are 6 total facts. And then facts verified is also another count. We're linking it to facts link again, but we are adding in this condition where the fact check status is equal to complete. So it's only counting complete facts or facts that have been verified. And lastly, if we look at ready, it is just saying if the total facts is greater than 0 and total facts is equal to the facts verified, then give it a status of 1, meaning that it's complete. All right, and so now we have both of our tables set up, and if we go into our automations, there's a few automations that we need to have as well. So the first one is going to be the start the fact check, right? When I click the button to start the fact check, we need to send that trigger into make in order to create the make scenario. So we are going to have it so that when a record matches a specific condition, we are going to connect it to the articles table, and the is going to be when start fact check is clicked, and when that happens, we're going to run a script. The record ID is going to be equal to the Airtable record ID, and then we just have this simple code. I'll go ahead and open this up. You can see here the name and the value. We need to create an input variable, so we call the variable record ID, capital I, and the value is the Airtable record ID. And we are just saying, fetch this webhook. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a webhook in make now. And the action is going to be equal to fact check. So if we hop into the fact checker, we click on watch responses, right? That's the first thing we need to do. So you're going to create a new trigger. It's going to be the watch responses in Airtable. And right, you would just go ahead, you'd create a new webhook. You'll see here, right, that webhook has a specific address. We're going to copy that address to clipboard and we're going to paste it right here. So await fetch. So you're waiting for that URL of that webhook to get this trigger going. And then we're going to pass the record ID as well as the action fact check. So that's the first thing. You can go ahead, you can choose your record, right? So you would just choose one of the articles or choose an article, load in some sample data there. What I did to test it out is I said, create an article about a travel destination with both real and fake information. Please do not specify which is real and fake, just write the article. And then I copied all of that information and I pasted it into the articles table. So I came in here, I hit plus, I created a new article, and I just dropped it under the article. It's going to start, and then we want to create a router. It's going to have 2 routes. The first route is going to be the fact checker, which is going to split it into individual facts. So for that, you want to set the label to fact check. The condition is going to be the action that is passed from Airtable. So the action in this case is fact check. And we're going to set the text equal to fact check so that when we hit the start fact check button, it is going to trigger this automation of starting the fact check, and it's going to run this script and go past this information and know to go down this path. Now, to test that once, you could just choose the record like we just did and then hit test action and then come into make and hit run once. And it is going to trigger that. Now, next thing we want to do is get that actual record that is just triggered, right? So that we can split it into facts. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to create your connection within Airtable. If you don't know how to do that and it is your first time, it's really simple. You click on your account. Within Developer Hub, you can then create your own personal access token, name it whatever you want, and then you just want to make sure that you add all of the possible scopes. You click here, add scope, click all of them, and then add the right base, right? The right database. So I just have it set to all databases. And then you're going to go ahead, hit save, and then that'll get created. And then it is very simple to just set it up afterwards like that. Then you're going to want to choose your base. So we named ours the AI News Fact Checkers. So you want to make sure you select the right table. In our case, it's articles. And then the record ID is going to be the record ID that was passed when we tested out this trigger for the first time. So now let's grab that information. The next thing we want to do is update the record. So once again, create your connection, select the articles table, grab that same record ID from the first step here, and then we are going to update the fact check status to in progress, right? So you can just turn off mapping, and then it is now gone from not started to in progress, so that when we click start fact check, it gets flipped into in progress status, and we will leave the rest blank. Go ahead and hit OK. Now the next thing we want is to split this into JSON. So we're going to create a chat completion. We're using GPT-4o. The role is set to user, and then the message content is you are an assistant that formats text for JSON compatibility. Your task is to process the following article text by replacing new lines with N and escaping double quotes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slashes, right? Return the formatted text only. Here is the article text where I paste the article, and the article is going to be from the record that we just grabbed, right? The article. And then we are going to ensure that the JSON is properly formatted without any line breaks, within string values, and we don't want to include any delimiters like JSON or around the JSON output. Set the max tokens equal to 0. After that is done, we're going to split the article into facts. So we want to create a completion, so we're going to choose the GPT-4o, the role is set to user, and then message content is going to be the AI prompt, right? So we're going to split it into different facts and different chunks with the original, the status, and the correction, and then we are going to pass that article. Here's the article. Max token is going to be set to 0. We'll hit OK, and then once that is done, we'll get a bunch of different pairs, and we now want to parse that JSON, right? And so to do this, you would add these two steps. We're going to head back into the AI News Fact Checker. We're going to test the action again. We are going to run this once, and then we'll get that information passed down through here. And then to parse the JSON, we'll grab the result from the splitter. So you can see here's my result, right? You can see this pairs, and then you're going to have it split properly into the different facts. Now once that's done, we need to iterate through all of those facts, and we need to pass that back to Airtable. So for that, I just put in an iterator, and that is linked to the pairs. So you can see here it is now split nicely into original, fact check, and correction. It was parsed properly, and we're going to grab that iterator. We're going to grab those pairs. We're also going to sleep. So I found if you put in a 1 second sleep timer, it prevents it from all the records being updated at once, which sometimes causes it to crash. So having this sleep timer of 1 second allows each individual fact to come in without any errors. And then lastly, we're going to create a record. So now we're creating a record in the facts table. So instead, this time, connect it to the facts table. And then from there, from that record, we are going to pass the original fact. So that's going to be the original from the iterator. Then the accuracy is going to be set to pending, right? For the article to be verified, or for that fact to be verified. And then the fact correction is going to be the correction, which is blank because it has not had any chance to be verified yet. We are going to set the fact check status to in progress, and the article of the record ID, right, is going to be the record ID from the very beginning. This allows us to have all of the facts contained within that article based on the record ID. So once all of that is done, you can go ahead, hop back into here. You're going to test the action again. You're going to hop back into make. You're going to run it once, and you should now have, if you hop into your facts table, if you go into all facts, you should have all of your facts here. Since mine have already been verified when I did this example at the very start, you'll see that the generate article portion is full, but in your case, under all facts, you should see all of these set to pending. All of this should be set to blank, and you're going to have the original fact, the accuracy set to pending, and the fact check status to in progress. Now, let's build out the second portion of the fact checker. So now that it's split everything into facts and it can verify all facts individually, the next thing that we want to do is we want to get a record. So same thing, we're going to come into Airtable, we're going to create a new automation, and that's going to be fact check online. And so what's going to happen is when a record enters the all facts view, right? So when a record enters a view, we're going to select the facts, view is going to be set to all facts. We're going to run a script. So it's the same script that we just had the previous step, Once again, we're going to create an input variable, which is going to be the record ID, and it's going to be the Airtable record ID. And then we are going to fetch the same webhook. We're going to pass that record ID, and this time the action is going to be set to online verify. So when we come back here in the router, when we have this filter, it's going to be set to online verify, where the action that is passed from the watch responses is going to be equal to online verify. So now it knows to come down this path and not the fact check path. Once again, we are going to get the record. We are going into the fact checker database. We are going into the articles table, and we are grabbing the record ID from the very start. So to get this kicked off, you'll want to come into here, choose a record, choose any one of the records that are going to be in your table, and then you're going to hop into run a script and click test action, and then you're going to run this once, and then your response will come through here, and you should be able to get that information and the record ID. Now the next thing that we wanted to do is parse the text, right? So I was getting this error because of the blank spaces and how it was formatted coming from Airtable into Make. It wasn't always properly formatted, and a lot of that had to do with titles, and then there would be a space, and then there would be the body section of that article. And when that happens, it doesn't allow you to have proper JSON formatting. So what we're going to do is put in this text parser, which is going to remove that and allow it to pass through in proper JSON formatting. So I just did /n as the pattern, and the new value is going to be /n instead. So essentially what's happening is this is the search pattern that it's looking for, and then it's replacing that pattern with this new value. And then we are going to want to check global match, check that it's case sensitive because it's always going to be lowercase n, and check the multi-line as well. Single line you can set to no. And then the text is going to be the original fact that is created within your fact table. I'm going to hit OK. Next thing, because of rate limits with Perplexity, we don't want to send all the facts at once. So we add a 5-second sleep timer, and this is just due to Perplexity's rate limits with their API. So next thing we want to do is make an HTTP request to Perplexity. So we're going to have this as the URL, HTTPS, API Perplexity completions. We're going to do a post request, so we're going to be sending information to them to verify. We're going to set the header to accept application JSON as the value. The second header is the name is going to be authorization, and then it's going to, as the value is going to be bearer, and then your API key that you're going to get from Perplexity. Lastly, the third item that you want is the content type as the name and the value as the application JSON for your third header. Then we are going to have the body type set to raw, the content type set to JSON, and then this is the request content. So here is the model that we are using for this specific case. The role of the system is really to ensure that the information is up to date, accurate, and relevant, right? Because we are verifying all of these facts. So that's what we're asking the system to do. And then the prompt that we're passing it, so we're going to pass the role as the user. The content is going to be, you are a fact-checking assistant. Your task is to verify the accuracy of the following statement and provide a detailed response. It is going to be the text that has been parsed properly, so the fact that has been parsed properly. And this is why it's so important to have that in there, because if you don't have the text parsed properly, then this JSON request will not work because there's going to be spaces in it. So your response should include whether the statement is true or false, supporting evidence or sources, and a corrected version if needed. And then format it in the following response, in the following format: accuracy, true or false, supporting evidence, provide specific evidence, sources here, and then a corrected statement. So if the original statement is false, provide a corrected version of the entire original statement with accurate information. If the statement is true, leave this field null. So once that is done, we are going to have another completion created within ChatGPT. I would recommend that you hop in your fact check and you test the action. You hop back in here, you run it once, and you make sure that you get a status code of 200 for Perplexity, because otherwise the rest of the steps won't work. So once you get a status code of 200, then you can proceed on to the ChatGPT step. And before going any further, I'm going to be sharing this request content with you so that you have it and you can just copy paste rather than having to do it all yourself. And then we're going to have the create a completion within ChatGPT. So we're going to set the role to user, and then we're going to have the following prompt. So format the following fact-checking result as a JSON object with these fields. Now, accuracy, supporting evidence, correction, remove any prefixes, right? So we want to get it into the proper JSON format so that we can split it again using parse JSON and then pass all of those values back into our Airtable. And then the fact-checking result is going to be the data, choices, message, content. So it's going to put that into proper JSON formatting for us. And then lastly, we are going to parse the results from ChatGPT. So you just come in here, you select the result. It should be parsed properly based on the prompt that we gave it. And then lastly, we are going to update our Airtable record. So within facts, you're going to grab the record ID. Now the record ID is not going to be the original record ID within Airtable. We're going to want to grab the Airtable record ID. Make sure you choose this one down at the bottom from the following step right here. And then the record that we're going to update is the accuracy. So the JSON has now been parsed properly. It's going to be the accuracy under the accuracy. The fact correction, so whether the fact is true or false, is going to be the correction. And then the supporting evidence is going to be supporting evidence, which is going to be passed right here. We're going to update the fact check status to complete. So make sure that you turn this off and select complete. When this is switched into complete, it'll also trigger the number of facts that are verified. And that is it for that. And you want to go ahead and save, and you can go ahead and test it again, test the action, and run it once and have it run through this entire prompt. And if it's done properly, you should end up with one of your facts under the generate article with the accuracy either set to true or false, and if it's false, it should have a fact correction with supporting evidence. Now, I do have one other automation that's important, and that is when the fact check is equal to complete. So lastly, we're going to set one last automation within Airtable, which is when a record matches the condition where the articles table as the verified article is not empty. So essentially what's happening is when the verified article is not empty, right, we're going to update the record of the fact check status of the articles with the record ID, and the fact check status is going to be equal to done. So now what that'll look like on your main page within the articles is it's going to trigger and say, hey, this article is now complete, and your verified article should pop up here. Now you should be able to turn on all of your automations as well as turn on your make scenario and pop back into here. You can paste the article that I'll have shared with you, and you should just be able to click start fact check. It should run completely in the background and output a verified article that has been searched. It has found the latest information, updated it where it could, and output a completed and verified article that is correct. Now, this took me a ton of time to build out, and I'm super psyched to be sharing it with you. I hope you got immense value out of it, and if you did, I would really appreciate if you dropped a like and subscribe. It's free, and it really helps my channel grow and allows me to continue making videos like this. So I hope you have an incredible day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.